I can't tell you how excited I was when Larry Lee asked me to do this today, asked me to be part of this program. Because I was under the impression that this was going to be a roast of Mark Bernhardson. I mean, I was thinking Friars Club or Dean Martin. Mark, I was all prepared to go completely Don Rickles on you here. I had the ribald humor, the inappropriate comments, the type of jokes that Rotarians and Hennepin County Court judges laugh uneasily when they're in a group, but then you go back to the office and repeat it and everybody just laughs. And I had a really good one, Mark, about the Queen of England and the US Navy. It would have killed, would have absolutely killed. In fact, I tried it out on Diane Kirby earlier, told her the joke. She turned beet red, and she actually got short of breath and had to sit down. That's how funny that joke was. But unfortunately, no roast. So if you want to hear the joke later, we can all get in trouble together later, we can do that. So I was trying to think of the best way to introduce Mark. And actually, Mark and I had known each other for about 25 years. Mark was this was the late 1980s. Mark was city manager back in Orono, and I was working with the League of Minnesota Cities as a very precocious 10-year-old working with the League of Minnesota Cities. And so we've known each other a long time, and there's been a lot going on. And so I was trying to think of how to do this, how best to introduce Mark. And as I was thinking about it, I kept coming back to a couple of things. The first thing, 25 years, Mark, isn't it great we still have our boyish good looks and our trim athletic figures? Isn't that great? That was the first thing. The second thing was simplicity. Just keep it simple. So with an idea of simplicity, here are the 3 words I want to use to introduce Mark for his 23 years here in the city of Bloomington. Impact, influence, and awesomeness. All right, let's start with impact. We could talk for a long time about both the day-to-day and the long-term impacts Mark has had on the city of Bloomington. And those impacts are rooted in his favorite mantra, quality services at an affordable price. The wonky part of all this, if you use a 5-year planning model like we do that considers both the short and long-term needs of the community, Bloomington's property taxes have grown at a rate of about 2.3% over the past 20 years, and that is the envy of a lot of cities. And the easy way of saying that is that Bloomington taxpayers have gotten one heck of a bang for their buck over the last 2 decades. And it's that financial strength and that long-term stability that's resulted in what probably should be considered Mark's crowning achievement as city manager here in Bloomington, the AAA bond ratings that the city proudly holds. When Mark came on board back in 1991, the city of Bloomington was a AA rated city. We moved up to AA plus in 1995 and then to AAA in 2000. Bloomington now is one of only 27 cities across the country that holds 3 AAA bond ratings from Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. Now, I know that this isn't news to informed, well-educated, involved Rotarians such as yourself, and I know that you appreciate what a AAA bond rating really does mean, but AAA ratings, they're not the snazziest kind of things. They really don't excite the electorate in the way like bike paths or bird-proof glass. That really gets people excited. But the impact on the cost of borrowing, the long-term financial security, development potential, and Bloomington's reputation across the state, that cannot be overstated. That is enormous. I saw a quote in Finance and Commerce last year about the value of a AAA-rated community, and it said, AAA ratings are reserved for organizations that do just about everything right, just about all the time. That reflects perfectly Bloomington's approach to strategic decision-making and to Mark's guidance and commitment to financial excellence in this city. When you add in Mark's leadership on topics like the development of the Bloomington Civic Plaza and Center for the Arts, the pavement management program, Imagine Bloomington 2025, the Blue Line LRT, the South Loop, a city staff that is second to none, my friends, that is impact. Check. Talking about influence is just as easy. Throughout the years, Mark has taken leadership roles in a wide range of municipal, county, and state boards where he's been smack in the middle of a variety of major issues. He served as chair of the South Metro Public Safety Training Center, where he led the construction of a new state-of-the-art training center used by cities in the South Metro area. He collaborated with our neighbors to the north to build healthier communities through the Dewtown Project, and regionally, Mark served as chair of the Hennepin Healthcare System from 2006 to 2009 when it became a public corporation. He's also been the leader in many other organizations, including the Municipal Legislative Commission, Metro Cities, the Hennepin South Services Collaborative, and he served a 3-year stint as chair of the Board of Trustees at the Gustavus Adolphus College Board of Trustees. Impact, check. Influence, check. So how about awesomeness? Now, awesomeness is a little tougher to get your arms around. That one's tough to define. So let's do it this way. Imagine you lived in a remote part of the Amazon, and you had no idea what a city government could or should be. Now imagine you were picked up and you were dropped in the middle of the city of Bloomington, and you were asked to look at things with a critical eye. What would you see? Well, you'd see a city staff of about 550 who are hardworking, committed to excellence, and quite honestly, the envy of just about every other city in the state, most counties, and probably a few small countries across the globe. You'd find 9 out of 10 city residents who think the overall quality of city services is either excellent or good. You'd see parkland and open space at every turn. You'd see a robust local economy powered by retail and hospitality, but also one that is home to thriving international businesses ranging from lawnmowers to refrigeration equipment to semiconductors. You'd find a place where the roads are plowed, the water tastes great, the early childhood learning is a state model, and where the cops are friendly. You'd find a city that's comfortable with its past, innovative in its present, bullish on the future. Folks, you would look at that city and you would say, that is a pretty awesome city. And now granted, Mark is not the only person responsible for this incredible level of awesomeness. One person couldn't be responsible for all of that. But as city manager for the past 23 years, Mark has provided a guiding hand and a powerful vision for Bloomington. And I'm confident that at one time or another, every person in this room has worked with Mark on projects big or small. And Mark has worked with you collaboratively, resourcefully, probably a little stubbornly, but with a laser focus on what's best for Bloomington. Awesomeness? Check. And one final thing. We live at a time when public service and public servants are at best marginalized and are at worst vilified. Whether it's teachers, university administrators, police, city employees, there are some pretty disparaging messages that are out there right now. To all who would denigrate public servants, I point to Mark and his lifelong career based on serving the public good. Too often the message about public servants is that the personally ambitious need not apply or that it doesn't attract the best and the brightest. I say rubbish. Take a look at the combination of intelligence, hard work, charisma, and those rugged Nebraska good looks that Mark brings, and tell me that the public sector is short on the best and the brightest. In 4 decades of work, Mark has shown that public service can and should be a means of self-fulfillment, not a means of self-denial. He has shown how to live and how to lead with integrity, creativity, commitment, and a pretty sharp sense of humor. Rotarians, Bloomtonians, and friends, please join me in welcoming and thanking for 23 years of service, Mr. Mark Bernhardson.
Thank you all very much. Want to thank you for your generous introduction. I actually had some comments here that I was going to say when you have an introduction by Jack Carlson, as he did here about a month ago at Christ the King Lutheran Church, founded by one of your founding members, Milo Engelstad, that when Jack introduces you, you can cut your speech in half. But it's always laudatory, and thank you for the very generous comments. For a while there, towards the end, when you were describing that combination, I thought you were going to say it was Ivy. She's the one who made me who I am today. Thank you as well for the opportunity to say a few words to a key group of Bloomington leaders who throughout your lives have taken your talents and abilities, among many other things to advance this community and the world beyond. Though feeling today a bit more like late autumn in the past week, the winter solstice, don't kid yourself, is near at hand. It's less than a week away. There's predicted snow tomorrow, and lest one forget, when those of us born in the northern tier of states again start channeling Robert Frost's Stopping by a Woods on a Snowy Evening. Whose woods these are, I do not know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Well, that has rustic appeal. We've been together for the past few decades to lead and serve this community. While humans are the most gifted of the living creatures here on earth, we are neither perfect nor even perfectible. Few, if any, have the full range of talents needed to best succeed. It is the key reason why people come together in community to do better together than what any of us can accomplish on our own. The human condition finds us striving to gain advantage for ourselves, which, like many of the other traits of human, are both bane and blessing. While motivated for improvement in our lot, it also can drive people to break the rules of the game to gain even further advantage. It's around the realization that even the smartest, wisest, and even most powerful do not have all the answers to fairly govern their fellow humans. That it is better that they share the power to choose the ones who govern them by those enfranchised to do so. Were it otherwise, dictatorships or philosopher kings would rule. Even a democracy as a human institution reflects our less than perfect condition. It is very human for those granted the privilege to exercise decision-making on behalf of others in their community to do so for their benefit and that of others who are most supportive, at the expense of the broader community. Fleeing persecution in Europe and braving 8 weeks in less than ideal conditions to cross the Atlantic, the Pilgrims understood the benefits of living in community and the need for rules to do so. Prior to landing on the shores of Cape Cod Bay, which they did in middle November. Now, what were they thinking? New England, the middle of November, snowy woods. They crafted and signed the Mayflower Compact, an agreement on how they would live together, sharing responsibilities and power inherent in living as a community. It was a precursor to our own U.S. Constitution. It continued the shift from a governing done solely by individual might, divine right, or wisdom to be done with the consent of the governed by the rule of law. Our federal form of government is robust with shared decision-making on many levels. Somehow it doesn't seem quite like that today. But, Congress isn't the only democracy we have in this country. Local government, cities, townships, and counties, the level closest to the people, had itself in the latter decades of the 1800s, along with the national and state levels, become rife with corruption. Now found in about half the cities of the United States, the CouncilManager Form that was given rise out of the reform movement does have its own separation of powers. The council acts only as a majority as they exercise their responsibility for the overall city policy direction and engagement of their one employee, the city manager, who is accountable to them for the successful operation of the organization. Adopted by Bloomington as part of its home rule charter, local government's version of Constitution in the early 1960s, the stability of its city managers, Jamie Verbrugge, who will be my successor, will become only the fourth city manager, professional city manager, since its adoption, and my predecessor sharing with me almost 50 years of that tenure. There's quiet testimony to the validity of this form of local government. Communities and its local governments are at its finest, a team sport. In the marketplace of competing ideas and interests, a top-performing city team, appropriately taking that all into account, rises above them with a strategic vision widely shared as springboard to move ever forward. It is the success of the team that you see the results today in the community that we all participate in. Bloomington, clearly with credit to those who here today who have served as mayor and council members, are wanting to work together to make Bloomington always better. As Tim mentioned, I am from Nebraska. Go Big Red! Something I share with former Mayor Neil Peterson. As a preacher's kid in a small town, I tried to navigate that space between the worst kid in town and the full wallflower on the parsonage decor. That's where I got some of my political talents. After having had great leadership and management training while serving as a naval officer, I did love going to sea. My ideal life would have had me going to sea 1 week a month. But the Navy didn't quite operate that way, so I went on to graduate school and Ivy to law school. During my undergraduate years at Gustavus, I had thought to teaching at the college level. But after my first few months at the university and grad school, decided based on my naval experience that I liked a bit more variety and gratification that had more immediate results. At about that juncture, you mentioned laser, I had a laser vision back to my 9th grade civics class and vividly recall the day when we studied the CouncilManager Form of government, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. Now, some of you may think that's hindsight. Well, in a way it is, but it is true. After my first year as an assistant in Edina, I gazed wistfully across 494 and said, if I could ever be city manager of Bloomington, it would be the capstone of a career. After 5 years in Edina, I started looking for city manager jobs in communities from 20 to 35,000 population range, but kept coming up short. So when I was finally offered the job in Orono, I said, kiss that Bloomington job goodbye. It's a different world than when I entered local government in the mid-1970s. I've changed. Those running for local government office have changed, as well as the attitudes, technologies, and techniques of all of us. While there has been significant change, cities still perform a similar set of roles in their community. The traditional 3 roles are being a service provider, a way of sharing costs for those services, and also set those key community rules for how we all get along. In addition, Bloomington has really been an example of a 4th role, that of being a catalyst, the visionary for the community, balancing those competing interests across the community. Essentially, the city is the stage setter for the market in their community for both residents and businesses. When I first looked at my new office in the old City Hall, I took over in 1991, there was a framed picture of a grizzled old cowboy. Not dissimilar for those of you who may remember my predecessor, John Pigeon, with a cigarette hanging down from his lips and a caption that said, there are a few things about this outfit that they didn't tell me when I signed on. And some events that first year made me think that poster prophetic. The mall was under construction, and to make a long story short, as a result of a former employee turned whistleblower, in my first few weeks, the state said they wanted to take over the entire building inspections for the mall. And then as then Mayor Peterson and Larry Lee well remember, we told the state, this is what we're going to do, and walked out. Not knowing if they'd let us try what we were going to do or not. But they called back in 24 hours and said we could go ahead with our plan. Then came the Halloween blizzard, where few of us moved for 2 or 3 days. But it was the genesis for the quality of that service you find today. Following that, the shooting and wounding of a Bloomington police officer, the first in the department's history in 40 years. And a few months later, the first officer-involved shooting and death of a civilian, suicide by cop. Since then, it's gotten ever better. When I came to Bloomington, it was a great community that could easily rest on its laurels, not needing to really improve upon itself for perhaps even 20 or 30 years. But then, like Rip Van Winkle, wake up to decline that would be difficult and expensive, if not impossible, to reserve. I'm a firm believer that if a community and its organization are not moving forward in this very competitive world, more evolutionary than revolutionary for the most successful communities, they will most certainly fall behind those communities. To do so successfully, and shamelessly I'm going to steal the title from our 2014 State of the City, that is the art of creating community. In its role as catalyst and community stage setter, Bloomington has always valued its strategic outlook, the most current vision being building and renewing the community in an ever more sustainable manner that encompasses the economic, the environmental, and the social dimensions. The 2014 edition of Bloomington is an even more robust community, containing both elements found in the most older established suburbs, as well as ones that are found only in the most successful. This is due in total to the teamwork on the many fronts across the community, of which you in this room have been great partners and leaders. And what does the future hold? The next iteration of Bloomington continues to appropriately renew the many single-family neighborhoods that we have, and do so by protecting them. Higher density, mixed-use, transit-oriented development, the wave of the future, is focused on 3 areas along 494. Normandale Lakes at Highway 100, Pan American, and South Loop. Those 3 represent 85% of the potential for development of this community in the near term. Of the 3, speaking of South Loop, of the 3 key decisions that the city made that set the stage for what today is designated as the South Loop, was first the mall. That decision back in the 80s was very risky and very key. To dream big and to make it happen. The second was the willingness by the council and the city to keep the airport in its present locations, accepting the impact of a new runway to the South Loop district and suppressing development there for the greater good. Both of these 2 key decisions set the third opportunity. Metro Transit's light rail first coming to Bloomington, the Hiawatha, now Blue Line. As former Mayor Houle and Mayor Winstead well remember, it was on a 4-3 vote. The near term for us in Bloomington, with relatively low interest rates, the economy is looking good for the next few years. Hotels are booming in Bloomington. Beyond the Radisson Blu, we have currently 5 hotels under construction. Lindau and we will have over 9,000 hotel rooms in this community when those are completed. The completion of Lindau Loring in 2014 has been made, and its extension to Bloomington Central Station will be concluded in this next year. The mall is currently doing phase 1 that also not only includes a hotel and more retail, but also office, and I know Kurt Hagen is here trying to find that next tenant and be ready to skip across Lindau to do another phase. We also have residential in Cambridge. In Bloomington Central Station on this past week, Lennar was approved for a 400-unit development in South Loop, and also the Luxembourg. The Green Line to LRT, although not connecting directly into Bloomington, will help drive more traffic on the Hiawatha and Blue Line. Longer term, additional residential in Bloomington Central Station, with some office interest in that area we hear. Residentially, more at Pan American. Hotels, another 2 or 3 in the offing. Now you say, how many hotels can we do? Well, Larry Lee, several years ago, did from 1955 on a graph and did a straight line. And boy, the community is varied up and down, but not far from that least regression line. I think that was correct, Larry. Wasn't it a least regressions, or was it just freehand? Least squares. Oh, least squares, thank you. Transportation, the most crying need, 35W and 494. Designed in the 50s and built in the 60s. This is the busiest intersection probably in the upper Midwest, and it's sadly in need of it. Paralleling that, the Orange Line bus rapid transit that I know Steve Elkins has worked very hard to accomplish. And finally, Southwest Light Rail, when it comes, will further strengthen our light rail network. And Larry and the council and everybody in the next few years will be updating Bloomington Imagine 2025 for the next few years so that we can do another comprehensive plan update by 2018 for the Metro Council. Among my many opportunities as a preacher's kid was listening to my father's sermons on a weekly basis. This time of year, I especially recall him encouraging those listening to move beyond giving thanks only on the officially declared day, to living lives throughout the year that reflect our gratitude, be it little or more than a little. He termed it thanks living. In this time of gratitude and generosity between Thanksgiving and when we again resolve to be a better this next new year, is a good time to reflect on what we have been the beneficiaries of. While not perfect, most of us in the United States have the blessing of freedom and relative prosperity on a level greater than most places throughout the world. We live in a wonderful metropolitan community in one of the best states. at least for those who thrive on mosquitoes and snow. And work with a great team, as Councilmember Bussey described here at the city, some among the top in their respective fields. Well, one can be a Scrooge or a Grinch. The person who shows a generosity of spirit generally does have a more positive outlook. By doing even one or two small things for others, like the old Boy Scout slogan, do a good turn daily, is a way of thanks living. It will come back to benefit more than one can imagine. As the United States was turning its attention to more peaceful times after victories in Europe and the Pacific brought World War I to a close, the movie mavens in Hollywood took a book that had been penned in 1939, towards the end of the Depression, but was unable to gain a publisher. The book, The Greatest Gift, by Philip von Doren Stern, they tried to convert this to a movie, eventually released at the end of 1946 under the title, It's a Wonderful Life. For those not familiar, it was the story of George Bailey, the unintentional head of a family savings and loan in the small town of Bedford Falls. He was driven to the brink of taking his life as the business he had struggled so hard to save through the Depression and World War was about to implode. The precipitating event was his absent-minded uncle misplacing a very significant bank deposit that ultimately fell into the hands of the town's unscrupulous Scrooge, a character dedicated solely to gaining advantage over others. George Bailey's salvation was his bumbling guardian angel, Clarence, who was trying to wing his way to heaven. By showing George several scenes of life in Bedford Falls, and what it would have been like had George not given selflessly to others over the years, in the process delaying the dreams that he had had for himself, George decided that indeed it was a wonderful life. On initial release, the movie failed at the box office. It languished in the studio vaults in LA until the 1980s, when it finally was given rebirth, as many baby boomers hit middle age and perhaps not achieved the dreams they had originally set out for. It has now become a Yuletide tradition. There's more to life than just career or material success. It's about making a difference in the lives of those around you. It is the essence of community, where people, by assisting each other, can do better together than any of us can do solely on our own. What has made these most recent 23 years so special for me have been all the people in the city of Bloomington, as well as this wider community, in carrying out a similar belief, who have made life here in Bloomington so much better for the rest of us through their service. As is said, the past is prologue. All that has been done together over the past few decades becomes the foundation on which the next several decades will be built. At the stroke of midnight, when 2014 quietly turns to 2015, new and greater opportunities await Bloomington, always moving forward. And I want to encourage you to support first Larry Lee as the next interim city manager, and then Jamie Verbrugge in the excellent manner that you have me. It truly is a wonderful life here in Bloomington. I've been asked about my plans. I thought I would find something different and more interesting as much as 10 years ago, but did not. As I turned 65 this past summer, by the way, 65 is the new 50, it was a good reason to force myself to do so. I even just got reelected to another 6-year term as a Hennepin County judge, and I will find something to do. Otherwise, I have a job title called, by the way, we're selling our home in Bloomington and moving downtown to a condo so she can be closer to work. My new job description, if I don't find something else, is condo boy. But as someone advised me a year and a half ago, I won't find it until I get done with this one. I do not envision a full-stop retirement. But like many of you who have reached a similar landmark, may take it a bit more easy. My thanks go out to the 3 mayors and the 30 council members I have had the privilege to serve with in making this a better community. You've stood, but please stand again. I want to see you. Current and former council members and mayors. To the many of you who have served the city on its boards and commissions, as well as the school district members, which are so vital, please stand if you're a present or former commission or board member. By the way, Dennis Kane of the Human Rights Commission asked me to put in this plug. Applications are due February 19th. This Friday, 3 openings on the Advisory Health Board, 2 on the Park and Recreation Committee, Park Arts and Recreation Committee, and 4 on the Human Rights Commission. To the members of the city's executive team, both past and present, as well as those who are on the front line and the middle management that are the backbone of all that makes Bloomington so much better place. Please stand. To all of those who both lead and serve this community, and in so many ways, especially Rotary and other service organizations, I tip my hat. And finally, to her honor, it took me a while to do that.
Never said that.
I did on Wednesday, didn't I? My wonderful friend and partner, Ivy, as well as other family and friends who are here today. Thank you so much for all you do. And as they say in the Naval Service, carry on. The great DNA of this place, always striving to make Bloomington an ever better community through the dedication of each of you and your willingness to lead and serve others in community. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Please sit down. I'm told I don't get off that easily. By the way, Tim Sass asked me before this presentation if there were going to be PowerPoints and if I needed to do that, because I'm renowned for doing PowerPoints over the years. I made today a PowerPoint-free zone. But I usually had enough PowerPoint slides that I would burn up the time all the way to the end, so there was never any time for question and answer. Mayor and I are renowned at that on State of the City. But I'm happy to take any. Please. None? Yes.
You had mentioned that there's always surprises or there's always things that you don't know moving into a new position. So what are a couple of strong advice that you would give to your successor?
Here's my phone number. There's an old joke in the city manager circles that I know a number of you have heard from me before. It's called the 3-envelope joke. When a new city manager had reported, he opened the desk drawer, and in there were 3 envelopes with instructions to open them in order as problems arose. The new city manager had been there about a year, ran into a little problem, opened up his desk drawer and pulled out envelope number 1. He opened the envelope. The advice was, blame your predecessor. He did, and everything went along swimmingly well for 2 or 3 more years until he ran into a second problem. He thought, boy, that was good advice in the first one. Let's see what the second one says. So he opened the second envelope. Second envelope said, throw yourself on the mercy of the council and take full responsibility. City manager did that and went swimmingly along for a number of years after that, until he finally came to his third problem. And so he thought, boy, those first 2 are really good advice. I wonder what this third one holds. Opens it up, and it simply says, prepare 3 envelopes. I can't answer every question with a joke, but story. Others?
Have you prepared 3 envelopes for Jamie?
No, I'm searching for that grizzled picture of, there are a few things about this outfit they didn't tell me when I signed up. Well, thank you all very much. Yes, Karen.
Thank you so much for good leadership. 20 years ago, I started on this smoking thing, as you well know.
And you're still smoking.
Anti-smoking thing. Anyway, thanks for all your leadership with that, and you and Mayor Winstead were terrific at starting the new town project, which was a novel idea, and hopefully it's still going with our public health department, but we've got a great public health department, and thanks for everything.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.